I'm Mady, I'm from France, from the northwest, in Brittany and Normandy. So in France I was stone mason, you would call, and basically I was specialized in restoration of sculpture and historical monuments. So that was mainly limestone or granite or any type of stone really you can find on historical monuments. And I did that for 4 years, almost. And that was my principal activity. I was studying and working in the same time, like in an apprentice. And I did some voluntary work on historical monuments as well. My free time, so I was into it. So I was restoring any type of buildings, classified historical monument. That could be cathedral, church, castle, even just like residential building, any really type of building, as soon as it's old. I did a little bit of creation when I had the time in my first years at school. I had a bit more time, but my last years, my 2 or 3 last years, I was working. I didn't have much time for myself, so I was mainly working in my company and on site. I just finished my contract, so I came in New Zealand just after I finished my school and I had my diploma, and so everything was ending in the same time. I left my apartment in Paris and my contract ended, so that was the perfect timing for me to just do whatever I wanted and just leave the work a bit and crazy Parisian life and come in New Zealand. I came in New Zealand mainly just to travel, and I really didn't think about carving or anything in any work at all. I just met the right people who presented me all the right people and friends from friends, and I end up in the stone world in New Zealand. I met Nick in my 3rd symposium I made in New Zealand. That was a Jade symposium. It was a little bit particular because that was in his tutor house, ex-tutor at school at the Polytech. So he just like invited me in his house to participate to this symposium, and Nick came a few days after, and we just met each other, spent a lot of time together, and that worked perfectly. I arrived in Christchurch. That was the first town I've been, and from there I couldn't find any work at all, so I started to try to find roofing, which is always the great solution when you're traveling. And I found Jeff and Lisa. Jeff was a stone carver, so I straight away jumped on it. And so I spent maybe 2 weeks, that was 2 or 3 weeks with him, and I think that was my first introduction to the stone in New Zealand. He had some little bits of Takaka marble in his garden, and he just, when I have a bit of time off, he just let me play a bit with that. I had a try, and he was already he was a jade carver based in Takaka for years and years and years. So he really I just been a little bit introduced to that. I was watching him working, watching his tools and stuff, what he was doing, but I was a bit just discovering really what he was doing. And so when I left, I wanted to just go travel down on the west coast. I was with a friend as well, and we wanted to go down the west coast without knowing that was the main jade point in New Zealand. But he gave us an address to go see someone. He called him the old Mick Collins, and he told me to just go see him, and he would have any advice to travel and anything. So we met Mick, and from that we met a lot of good people. All the right people I needed to meet, I think, because Mick introduced me to Rory McDougall, and Rory asked me to participate to his symposium because I was still looking for a work or anything to do, and he just had someone who couldn't come at the right moment when I arrived, so I showed him my book and he asked me if I could come. And the first symposium was in May, so I was between from the moment I met Mick and Rory and the moment that I had my first symposium, I just traveled all along the South Island, and we started in May. I had 2 weeks of symposium with Rory, and from there I met Pete, who asked me to participate to his symposium in Westport after as well in June. And because of Pete, he introduced me to Rick, who was doing this symposium in Greymouth, where I met Nick, and that's how I got in the wave. The first stones I carved in New Zealand these little bits of Takaka marble, but mainly for 2 symposium there was serpentine, which is kind of a baby jade, would say. So that was my first connection with jade, we can say that, maybe. And the first really piece of jade I carved, that was at this symposium when I met Nick, and that was not New Zealand jade, that was Siberian jade, a white jade. And I just I fell in love with it. That was so easy to really like make whatever you want with that, and it's magical stone, kind of. I don't know, it's different than what I was used to carve, and yeah, I'm more used to big stones like limestone or granite or this kind of stone. You can't really have any much details. It's rough, that would stay rough, and with jade you can have any profile of the stone. You can have this roughness, and you can have it so smooth and shiny, and she has so many faces. And colors, and whoa. You can see through some of them, you can just so much freedom.